I call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education, today, Tuesday, January 25th, 2011. Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey?
Here.
Mr. Charleston?
Here.
Mrs. Charlton?
Here.
Mrs. Hancock?
Here.
Mrs. Luback?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
And if we could, again, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Saw a couple Boy Scouts in the audience. I thought we should do that. Okay, approval of minutes first. First, December 14th, 2010. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 14th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And in your orange folder, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the December 14th, 2010 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, those minutes are approved. January 11th, 2011. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the January 11th, 2011 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and
I
then
abstain.
And then from your orange folder, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the January 11th, 2011 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, are there any public comments? We have a request and, okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan McKay. I'd rather not be standing in the middle of the room here because I want to address the people sitting behind me as much as I want to address the people in front of me. Last year, 201 cut over $500,000 from our budget as we lost languages in the junior high, we lost summer school programs, we lost our curriculum director, we lost a lot of other things. At the same time, we raised student fees across the board for sports and activities. On tonight's agenda, there are budget reduction planning forums occurring February 3rd and the 15th in the next 2.5 weeks. What are our children going to lose next year? What's next to be cut? We cut $500,000 last year. It's not coming back. We just heard there's $1 million budget projected next year. The low-hanging fruit was cut 2 years ago. Last year, we cut things that hurt. And now we need to double that. That's going to cause dramatic changes to our school district, and it's going to mean a lot less things for our kids. A lot less things, including larger class sizes and a lot of things disappearing out of the educational experience. I know the teachers union and school board is still negotiating the next teacher's contract. I just heard about it now. Based on the things I've heard over the past 4 years, however, it appears we're still all living in a bubble. Tonight, I'd like to take a few minutes to burst that bubble and bring us all into reality for the good of my kids and for the good of all the other students in 201. According to citydata.com and clrsearch.com, Westmont's median household income, that's the middle. There's as many people earning more than this number as many people as learning lower this number. And it's a household income. If you have 2 income earners, it still counts as one household. Most of Westmont folks are probably 2 income if they're not single. And so median household income for everyone living under one roof, everyone bringing in income, in 2009 was $56,600. $56,600. Did you know that 1/3 of our teachers make over $100,000 total gross pay? which includes extra pay for duties like coaching a sport, sponsoring a club, directing a musical or a play or an instrumental, being a department coordinator, supervising lunch, supervising bus. And good for them. I bet most Westmont residents would like to make this much, while also having summers off to spend with their kids. 4/5 of our teachers' base salary, not including the extra duties, is more than the $56,600 median income, household income in Westmont. So for any of our teachers that are married and their spouse has an income coming in, most of our teachers are making a lot more than all of us taxpayers who are paying for all of this. Here's the problem, though. According to ISBE report cards, out of 390 unit school districts in Illinois, we pay the highest average base salary of $79,841. And this is a low number because it does not include the extra pay for all the duties that I talked about. At the same time, we're running a huge budget deficit. So class sizes are going to increase. We may have to go to grade level centers, which means no more neighborhood elementary schools. We are going to lose sports and activities. When I say we, my kids, my daughter going into the junior high is going to have a different experience than my senior going into senior right now in the high school. And my kids after them are going to have a different experience because there's going to be a lot less here and a lot less teacher percentage too. I was stunned to find out that we paid the most out of 390 unit school districts. It turns out that Lyle 202, which is 6 miles west of us, a unit school district exactly the same size as us. Our enrollment is theirs is 1,536 versus ours of 1,579. They have 111 teachers, we have 110 teachers, full-time equivalents. They're number 3 out of 390 unit school districts at $75,456. Again, that's base. That does not include all the pay for extra duties, which means that 201 pays our teachers an average base salary that's $4,400 more each.
Mr. McKay, I just want to remind you of the time, so if you could.
Okay, I need about probably a minute and a half more. If I multiply that $4,400 times 110 teachers, that means we spend $484,000 more. And we have great teachers in 201, and we have a lot of really good teachers in 201, but I bet Lyle does too. And we pay $484,000 more, and we have a budget deficit of $1 million. So I look for our teachers to help. Most of us in Westmont have been hammered in the Great Recession, and many of us have lost jobs. In 2011, the state of Illinois raised our state income tax by 67%, meaning all of us have 2% less income starting January 1st of this year. Meanwhile, the value of our homes has plummeted, yet our property taxes continue to rise, and next year they'll be going up another 1.5%. I truly appreciate our teachers, but we simply can't afford to pay more than any other of the 390 unit school districts in our state anymore. Please, as a parent and a taxpayer, I'm pleading for help. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mary Kay Caporelli.
Hold on. State your name at the microphone. Go ahead.
I'm Mary Kay Caporelli. I just wanted to take the opportunity on behalf of several members of our community to thank the board for the opportunity to let us speak with regard to the superintendent search. I attended 2 of the focus groups, and in talking with people after the meetings, there was a real sense of community and a real hope of moving forward. So I can only hope that your vote tonight represents the community input that you received. You've got a genuine opportunity to establish trust throughout the entire district. But again, I just want to say thank you. It was a great, great experience. Thanks.
Thank you. Is the Miller PTO ready?
Good evening. My name is Mike Graham. I'm with I have 3 boys. The oldest is in 2nd grade at Miller. And thank you to Jonathan and Mary Kay. I appreciate those are great comments, both of them. I'm coming before you for 2 things. One is I want you to know that you guys are behind these desks and you have some huge challenges that you're addressing for the district. I want you to know that you're not alone, that there are a lot of us out and about within the community that are watching and trying to participate in every way that we can assist you as you make these very difficult decisions. So thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for everything you have in front of you. So we appreciate it. To that end, one of the things that we're trying to do collectively within the district at all the different schools is come up with plans, initiatives, things that we can do individually and collectively to enhance the education process for the students and the experience that they have. Many different things have been going on throughout the last few years. We have the Wizards coming, as you know, which is a really big deal. I'm very excited. And at Miller, we looked at the different possibilities for this year and decided that one area we wanted to focus more so into academics this year than possibly we have in the past. So we put together a science fair committee, and the PTO is going to be putting together a science fair for its students on April 15th. So save the date. The way that it's going to work, and there's been a committee, we've had multiple meetings, and I've spoken with Kelly Boss and Kevin Carey, so that they're both aware on how this will work. But it's we're going to have each of the classes do a science project as a class. And they're going to have about 4 weeks to do it, but spring break is in the middle of that, so really 3 weeks, 2.5. And then also the fifth graders are on a voluntary basis. It's not curriculum based, or it's more extracurricular. They're going to have the opportunity to put together science projects, and then which they're going to follow a particular procedure. I'm not a scientist, so trust me, it's going to be great. And then on the 15th, we're going to bring in a science presenter who's going to talk to the kids at that grade level about the different exciting parts of science, and some of it's going to be cool, fancy stuff early in the morning. And then at 1 in the afternoon, the kids are going to, from each of the classes, go into the gym and put up all over their boards, including the fifth graders. And they're going to be judged by some of the administration within the district, from the junior high, high school. We've already reached out to them. And then also from the community itself. Mayor Ron has a call into them. And as you know, I think he used to be a teacher, so we're hopeful that he'll participate as a judge. And so we're going to have first, second, third prize in 2 different categories. One's going to be by the class, and then the other one's going to be just for the fifth graders. And the prizes are going to be fairly significant as an incentive to the students, and which we're really excited about. But more important than a prize that comes and goes, technology. So the fifth graders are getting an iTouch as first prize, camcorder is going to be second prize, gift card to Best Buy is third prize. So some relevance to enhance their desire to participate. But more importantly, in the class level, we're going to have events like ice cream and that sort of thing that PTO is going to support, but we're going to have trophies. So there's going to be a first, second, and third place trophy, and whichever class gets the trophy gets to keep it in their classroom. And if the science fair goes well, we'll have it again the next year. And the plaque itself will have the year and who won first, second, third prize. And we'll hopefully pass it around the school over the years. And so we're hoping that this will become part of the institution. So we're really excited about that. So my request to you again is to keep going, hang in there. You're not alone. And help us in being a part of the science fair and other tremendous activities that are going on within the district. Any questions?
April 15th?
April 15th. Oh, I didn't mention, I'm so sorry. This is the most important part. Can you believe it? All right, so we're going to have the judging around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then at 6:30, it's going to be opened up, the gym's going to be opened up for the community to come in and look at the different science projects. And that's when the award ceremony is going to take place on who won. So the parents can come in and see what happened, and the students can come back and show mom and dad what they've been up to, which I think is an important thing. And we've also asked the junior high science club to come in and help us with the experience by possibly doing a presentation of science projects that they're involved with. And there's two different pieces. One is the younger kids think that that's really cool. The other part is that the younger kids think that's really cool. So they hopefully they'll say, oh, when I'm in junior high, I want to be in that science club. And so it enhances that continuity of the education experience within the district, which I know that we are all working desperately to break down those silos. So really excited about it.
Thank you. That,
what
I
time?
asked for that just to make sure that we can try to attend that.
Thank you.
What time in the evening?
6:30, and it's on April 15th, again, which is normally tax day. So now you got it in your head. April 15th, tax day, is when the science fair is at Miller. And as you know, your taxes aren't due till the 18th, so no excuse to stay home.
Well, thank you to the Miller
Mike,
PTO.
thank you very much. You know, these types of science fairs, the kids really don't get the hands-on type of stuff because, you know, the nature of laboratory science, it is just really expensive to do these types of things. So these types of programs provide that kind of hands-on opportunity for kids to really see science and feel it with their hands, and it's a real positive thing. So I applaud your efforts.
Well, thank you.
Plus, I like the idea of the classroom doing it together because that produces the whole team concept at a younger age, so that's great.
Thank you. Well, good. Yeah, and we put a budget on it for each of the classrooms. They're each getting, the PTO's giving a stipend, if you will, of $100 per class, and then we're asking that each of the teachers stay in that dollar range, which also enhances creativity while not, hindering, what can I do with what I have in the classroom itself. They have some resources at a reasonable level.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. See you on the 15th. Are there any other public comments at this time? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the permanent superintendent search, the IASB report, and we have Ms. Dawn Miller here from the IASB. Step up to the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hope you've all had an opportunity. It's a pretty lengthy report. I did tell you you'd get all the comments I got, and you got all 14 pages of them. I don't edit them. I just type up what they say. And in the information you received from the confidential comments from the survey itself, you'll see many typos in that. It comes directly from the survey itself. We don't correct anything in there. So you'll see some misspellings, things like that, but that's just the way it comes out of the survey. We don't feel we should be making any specific corrections. But I'll be referring to the confidential report that I made out for you. I make this very brief intentionally, okay? I want to make it as simple as possible so that when you're going through it, you can see everything quickly. I'm a big fan of what I call a 1 or 2 page executive summary, and so that's why this is very short also. We received survey responses from 5 board members, 81 staff members, and 178 community members. The majority of all respondents would prefer someone with previous experience, and a majority of respondents believe living within the district should not be a requirement. The following is a breakdown of priorities by each group. The board, the staff, and the community, the number 1 choice was being a people person. Number 2 for the board was following the educational philosophy of the board, which reflects community values. Number 2 for both staff and community was goal setting. Number 3 for the board was goal setting. Number 3 for staff and community was the knowledge and experience in district management. Number 4 for the board was student behavior, and for staff and community was strong and continuing academic background with curriculum experience. Number 5 for the board was staff development assessment, and number 5 for the staff was following the educational philosophy of the board. Number 5 for the community was experience in school finance. It should be noted that staff development assessment was the next priority item on both staff and community surveys. I think what's important is we see a correlation here so that you are reflecting what the community is looking for. Composite for a preferred candidate would be as follows. And that's we take all the preferences, and if we were to take this 1 through 6, and we give 6 points, 5 points, 4, it's really simple. Nothing confusing here. This is how it comes out. So your preferred composite based on the survey is a people person with proven abilities in human relations and communication, Number 2 would be someone who provide leadership in planning and develop with Board of Education both long and short-range district goals. Number 3 would be someone who having a thorough knowledge of and experience in district management practices. Number 4, following the educational philosophy established by the board, which reflects the values of the communities. Number 5, having a strong and continuing academic background with successful experience in curriculum. And number 6, provide leadership for an effective staff development and assessment program. There were 134 respondents who added comments. All the comments were attached to the report. I believe it's 13 or 14 pages. 12, sorry, that one was 12. The other one was longer. There were included in the comments were references to candidates' criteria, including communication, collaboration, leadership, accountability, experience, working with the Board of Education. I have permission, there's some confidential information in here, and I believe I have permission to read it. We would not do that if we did not have permission from the person mentioned. The Board of Education. Okay, it should also be noted that of the 134 comments, 64 were in support of retaining Kevin Carey as superintendent. Focus groups. I had a wonderful day in your district. You have wonderful people here. You have very caring people. You have people who are very supportive. I'm going to read what the report says, but I'm going to tell you, I enjoyed myself. It was a long day. It was a good day. And anyone who's here who was there that day, thank you very much for coming. I thoroughly enjoyed it, okay? You are very fortunate to have the community you have. It was a busy but I feel productive day. I was pleased to meet with 9 focus groups from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m., followed by an open forum with your community. All the comments I received are attached to the summary. That's the very long report I'm talking about. As I said, that's the mind dump from people. I sit there and, as you've seen it, I just sit there and type because they're talking. I do go back and correct my spelling errors, so I hope you don't find them in mine. But I do correct misspelled words and things like that. But I give you exactly what people told me. The report from the board is the same way. I took notes from every board member I spoke with, and I didn't want to type as I was talking on the phone with board members, but I have every word everyone told me. And all I did was then just type it in the machine. So the 3 pages you have from board interviews are all in there, okay? That's on a separate sheet. You have that also. I asked each group the same 3 questions. What are the strengths of your district? What are the challenges facing your district? And what criteria are you looking for in your next superintendent? The comments I received most frequently were, and you can see them if you go through it. Size of your district, the small size, and being a unit offers more opportunities for extracurricular activities for students, especially junior high and high school level. That was said over and over again, that because of your size, you don't have a cut policy. Kids can get into as many things as they want. A supportive and engaged parents and community. So it's not just the parents, but the community itself is very supportive. Experienced staff that goes above and beyond for students and staff, and they wear many hats. You have many challenges, though. Finance, across the state, everyone's facing that one. But the size, although is a plus, is also a negative because you're too often compared to larger districts nearby. Your facilities, both the age and the usage of your facilities was a challenge. Diversity and changes in demographics. Academics is a concern for many, and a divisive board. Criteria or characteristics desired in your next superintendent include a good communicator, someone who's open and approachable, someone who's fiscally accountable, someone with the knowledge of curriculum, and someone who's community-oriented. And it should be noted here, and I have permission, all but one focus group and a majority of those speaking at the open forum supported retaining Kevin Carey as your superintendent. That's the report. As you've seen, you have copies of everything else that we learned at that time, including the actual survey itself. Any questions from anyone?
Okay, so I guess the format that we're going to take as a board is we can talk amongst ourselves now. We have an opportunity to go into close to talk about personnel issues, and then we can go from there. So, having said that,
I just have a question for Dawn before she steps away from the podium, and it just has to do with this notion of finding the perfect candidate for our district. And, you know, in my mind, you're never going to find the perfect candidate.
There's no such thing as perfect.
Right. But how do we as a board, or how does it play as far as putting together a well-written performance-based contract and the evaluation process to help shape, to help make the person we choose meet all of our expectations.
Oh, I think you can do that if you look a little deeper. We could go a little deeper into this. And you would actually come up some performance basis, especially when we were looking at academics and curriculum, which is what your performance base is supposed to be based on. You're also going through, I believe, a strategic plan. I saw Linda Hansen's name mentioned here, by the way. She's fabulous. Great choice. And she was our superintendent for many years. And so I think it's important to know that that could come out of that also. Your strategic plan could be a guideline also to help you determine what your performance basis would be.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments at this time?
You're talking about before we go to close?
Before we go to closed.
Oh. I guess the only thing I feel is that, I know we're going to go to close and we'll have some discussion, but I think I owe people a little bit of an explanation as far as what I feel is important in a superintendent. I don't know if anyone else feels like sharing some of their thoughts on that or not, but when we first looked at an interim candidate and we were sifting through the resumes, the things that drew me to the candidates that we wanted to interview were their classroom teaching experience, that they had a number of years in the classroom and not just one or two before they skipped up to administration, and that they had various administrative positions, principal, curriculum director, deans, if they had any business office experience, if they had any experience with student services or special education, and if they had experience in curriculum development, either as a curriculum director or somebody who led a curriculum-based project strategic plan, someone that was capable of, I think it's really important, someone that can use the talents that we have. We talk about our highly educated, very trained, very experienced teaching staff. They have to have just ideas galore, and bringing them together, someone to facilitate and collaboratively work with them to generate ideas to move our district forward. I think that's an important characteristic. Unique district experience is a plus. And then also, if there is a desire for an advanced degree, it's a great perk. I don't find it an absolute. So those were some of the things. In general, I think an educational leader is a leader who is inspirational and inspirational presence for all employees, someone who brings out the best in all school employees from the lunchroom through administration. And an educational leader interacts with all levels of employees and doesn't just rely on the chain of command for communication. Leaders should foster a sense of ownership and mission among all staff in our community through collaboration, and encourages novel ideas to originate from all employee levels. An educational leader realizes the importance of a balanced academic, social, and emotional development in educating the whole child. A leader talks of that importance with our community. An educational leader understands that we are a service organization for students, parents, and our community as a whole. Schools are not corporations, and a leader has to balance the business mindset with the service role of our organization. Educational leader recognizes the importance of board policy and puts it to use in practical terms through an administrative manual. That brings consistency to our district and across our district. Strong leader will trust our building administrators, but will hold them accountable to clearly defined responsibilities and roles. And finally, an educational leader knows that solid teacher-student relationships are critical to improving student achievement. Those are the types of things I looked at as I went through your report, and I highlighted what I thought were comments in green that I thought applied to our interim superintendent of the various pages here. And they fit a lot of my criteria. And after reading some of the comments that were made at the open forum and made on the survey online, I think I'm in tune with what our community feels as well. So thank you for your input.
Are there any other comments at this time?
I wanted to concur with something a community member had said earlier. I think the search and the events and the other things that you've put together, helped put together for us, have been valuable tools for us to use. Thank you.
Okay, then the chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing personnel issues. Roll call, please.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Second?
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Luback?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
The board is back in session. Hold on. Can we see if George is back there? Is anybody there?
This is what it feels like to wait for a face-off in a hockey game when the TV cameras in.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, the board is back from closed session, and there was much discussion, and we'll have an opportunity to speak. Do we want to do a motion first, or does anybody want to speak first? Okay. So I move approval to suspend the services of the IASB and enter into negotiations with our current interim superintendent, Kevin Carey.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Luback?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
I'm going to go first in terms of thanking so far, and we have only suspended her services at this moment, but thanking Dawn and the ISB for facilitating a process, a feedback process that was both necessary and invaluable to us as a board. Thank you. It was, I think, exceptionally worthwhile. Obviously, the comments from the community were that it was worthwhile. It was especially worthwhile to receive those via your work. Thank you.
And also, as an extension of that, a very strong thank you to the community, to all of the constituents that serve the district. For me, it was a tremendous opportunity to get feedback. There were a lot of very substantive comments, not a lot of one-liners, not a lot of just fluff. A lot of very, very good feedback, specifics and details, and we are incredibly fortunate to have people within our scope of influence that are willing to put that kind of time and effort into our process. It was tremendous.
I would like to take a moment, too, to say that I was both touched and impressed with the sheer number of folks showing up that took the time to respond to the survey, to the forums, to come forth. We had a number of focus group meetings, and I was, again, very proud. We had the mayor, the police chief, the fire chief, village trustees, leaders from our library, from our park district, from our Chamber of Commerce. We had our PTO leaders. We had all of our bargaining units represented. We had our boosters, clubs, and all then followed by an open forum where the entire community was invited and who attended. So I will just say that I am very impressed, and I'm glad to be a Westmont resident now, because it does, in addition to, it does show how much our community is invested in our educational system. And again, I will again talk about what Shannon mentioned, that some of the comments that we got were very, very, very insightful and very in tune to what we're looking at as an educational community. So I will say thank you. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I'll just chime in. Thank you very much, Dawn. It was a pleasure to go at least this far in the process. I mean, to be quite honest, I'm happy that it's, you know, where it's at right now. But thank you very much. I certainly hope that we take up the IASB on these types of issues. I think they're just great to work with, and they just are have so much useful advice for a board, and I think they add that little bit of extra to kind of help us and keep us focused on on the subject matter that we're working on. So I look forward to working further. Thank you. Thank you to our community too. Absolutely. Great feedback.
And I don't want to reiterate everything that everybody else has said, but I basically feel the same as they do. And I also want to thank Dawn for all the work that she put into our process. So thank you.
I concur. Thank you, again.
One piece of housekeeping that the board would like everyone to know is that the 3-page report that Dawn referenced and discussed will be online for the community to see it. It will be in our post packet from the board, in the board packet. So that will be online at some point this week. Okay? Okay. The next item on the agenda, wow, really? Consent agenda. Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? Then I move approval of the consent agenda as presented. Number 1, personnel recommendations. Number 2, approval of student tour requests. And 3, ratification of regular payroll.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I think we do. We have
Well,
to-
I do that, and roll call now, please.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock? Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
The superintendent's report, please.
Including the superintendent's report, you have the most recent updates from the Len Group. And Kim does attend those meetings as our representative, so if there's any questions regarding those, we can answer those for you. To update the board on strategic planning process, the survey has gone out. There is a link on the district webpage as well as each of the building web pages, and it went out via email, and then we will, Judy and I will work on a press release to go out into the newspapers to get the community involvement as well. And as we start talking about facility planning and even some of the budgetary reduction planning that we're doing, there are some questions on that survey that do address some of the conversations we're having in terms of prioritizing needs for the district and how we allot our funds, and then also the whole concept of examining grade centers. That's a question that's on the survey as well. So that's an opportunity for the community and school families to provide us feedback, and then that's information that we can look at as well as we're moving through the budget reduction process.
Kate, did you also use the phone call?
Well, this just, I noticed that on the blog, we just got this afternoon. I saw
okay.
that.
Right.
So we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
But I know how to do that now. So
And then,
we should talk about that. Do we want to talk about timing in that? Kathy, did you want to?
What, for the survey, for the strategic planning survey, I think we should use the phone call system
Okay.
to alert.
So
Sure.
we'll,
It'd just be one more
Yeah.
okay,
avenue.
yeah. We've got all the kinks worked out on that.
Okay,
So
great.
We're ready to go forward. Right, Judy? Okay.
Then with regards to facility planning, Steve Cashman had a conversation with Kim. It looks like he will have his report ready our second meeting in February, which I think is the 22nd of February. But there are, I've gotten emails from a couple of the community members, and they're definitely, people are anxious to get started on that process. And there are some things that committee can do prior to receiving Steve's report and including Steve in that process. So unless there's any objections from the board, we can begin that process of putting together that committee and, at least have a meeting prior to that February 22nd meeting and start to, develop the goals and objectives of that group and start that process.
Yeah, do it.
I think it sounds like a good idea.
With regards to school calendar, I gave you two copies, two drafts, and this is just this discussion right now. The plan in talking to Grant, our WTA president, is to the February 8th board meeting to have a calendar for the board to take a look at and approve. The first calendar, Calendar A, that's more or less from conversations I had with Grant in terms of start date and vacation and so forth. And then Calendar B is a result of conversations with the administrative team. I know, Kathy, you had asked about the final exam structure, and in talking to Steve Carr, that's kind of a little bit of how Calendar B came into being in terms of it allows for a little bit longer time before the start of Christmas break. And we pick up a couple extra days by taking the, being in session for some of the holidays. And so that's how we're able to pick up a couple of days.
Okay, so then in Calendar B, the finals would be before Christmas break?
That's what the high school would plan on doing.
Okay. And how does the WTA feel about that Calendar B?
That's, Grant and I were supposed to have met last Friday to talk about this and then also budget reduction. Unfortunately, Grant was sick that day, and so we need to have that meeting. And he's received both copies of the calendar, and I know his plan is, after he and I have another conversation, is to get input from other members of the association, so that when we come back on the 8th, we'll be able to provide you with that information as well.
Okay.
So we're looking at this then, talking about this on February 8th?
Right, for approval. It'll be on February 8th.
I just looked at this and I was looking, though, to the extent that sometimes I'm a parent, that the Christmas break for the first, or the holiday break for Calendar A is like midweek to midweek.
Right.
Where Calendar B is like Friday to Monday kind of thing.
Right.
So.
And that was part of the conversation. The initial Calendar A with breaks starting on the 21st and then returning on the 3rd, partly because with January 1st being a Sunday, our 12-month employees, their holiday would be January 2nd. So to return to school on the 2nd, we wouldn't have those individuals. And so then we would come in the 3rd. And then there was some concern from the administrative team about breaking up weeks like that. And is that what's best for students? And so that's where the genesis of the, we'd be in session through the 22nd. And then we would return on that Monday, which I think is the 9th.
The 6th.
Well, the 6th is that Friday.
9th.
So then the 9th, we would return. So, both calendars have 2 weeks of break, basically. One, it's kind of split around the holidays, and the other one, it's pretty much takes place after Christmas, so.
But let me just make sure I understand, in Calendar A, though, they're having finals when they come back from Christmas break, correct?
Well, Steve's not sure about that. What would occur is if they went with finals before Christmas break in Calendar A, those students would be in their first semester class still when they returned, and it would be an opportunity to review the final. As Steve said, it would be more of a formative assessment at that point. And then before that start of the semester, whereas the second calendar, it's closer to what would be the start of the new semester because of the length of the Christmas break.
So both calendars would have finals before break?
Both calendars, it's a possibility. It would definitely happen in B, and that's a conversation the high school would have to have with A.
Okay.
And maybe when we come back on February 8th, we would know a little bit more of that? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And then with School Climate Committee, Steve Carr facilitated another discipline committee meeting, and after the meeting, he and I had a couple of conversations just in terms of originally the district had a handbook committee, and that kind of morphed into a discipline committee, and it's trying to serve two purposes. It's trying to deal with recommending handbook changes because it's required that we have a handbook committee to review the handbook, make recommendations, and then the handbook is, adjustments are made to it and brought to the board for approval prior to the next school year. But at the same time, we're also dealing with some, school climate issues within our buildings and how to best address those. And so my recommendation to Steve was that, we separate into two committees, have one that's focused on the handbook, which would basically go back to the original committee, a handbook committee that would look at possible handbook language changes. But then, and I think this is going to also be probably part of our strategic planning as well, a school climate committee that is taking a look at some of the things that are occurring in our buildings, how we're addressing those things, how we can better address the needs of our student, and look at more than just the discipline end, but truly looking at school climate for our students. And so, Steve and I are going to be working on that, and then also, enlisting more parents to be involved, more community involvement in that. I had mentioned to the joint PTO when I met with them that this is a direction I thought we'd be going, and encouraging if they could even, assign some individuals to, come to those meetings and then be able to come back to the PTO meetings and booster meetings and report out. So, without any objection, I think that's a direction we'd like to go with those committees.
I think it sounds great. I think it sounds like it's going to tackle the issues that have been been talked about before, but yet take on a whole climate issue. So it sounds like a great idea.
Yep.
And then with the budget reduction planning, included in your board book, this is kind of a first time that you're looking at some numbers in some of the areas we've been talking about. And again, Kim's still working on some of the non-personnel areas, the reduction in supplies, board expenses, curriculum development, those types of things. And as far as kind of where we're at right now, and a lot of this is due to the fact that it was mentioned during the PMA presentation that we are starting to see a trend of smaller enrollments, and it's a small freshman class coming into the high school. And naturally, because you have fewer students, then the number of sections you need to accommodate those students decreases as well. So the high school right now is looking at possibly a reduction of 2.2 FTE. And in terms of detail, how that will, the dominoes, so to speak, because they're still going through their course selection process, Steve's not sure exactly where that's going to fall, and that information will be shared once we have that information. We are looking at the 4 retirements, and hopefully we're looking to absorb those. And that $235,000 savings as a result, that is, if you recall, the projection model already built in a replacement costs of $58,500. And so really you can't subtract out the full value of those retired teachers, but you can only subtract out what the replacement cost was, because that was already accounted for. The remainder of their salaries and benefits was accounted for. And so that's why it's, instead of being a number of 400,000, it's reflected as a number of 235,000. Junior high is also looking at doing some things staffing-wise, because they've also, they are getting a larger number of students next year, but it never really was accounted for that they had a decrease in enrollment. So we're trying to catch up in that regard as well. And so they think that probably around 3 FTE that they would be able to reduce by. In terms of what would be easiest to reduce, that brings us right now to a total of about $556,000. And if you recall, we're looking at about $1 million deficit for next year. And after, I do have some other details to share, but because of some of the personnel elements, I can do that in closed session. And then also in talking about strategies for negotiation as well, I think that comes into play as well. And so I can share those in closed session. Again, Grant received all this information, including some of the detail that we'll be sharing in closed session. And unfortunately, we weren't able to meet, and so I don't have feedback or input yet from the WTA, but that will be coming.
As far as the enrollment at the high school and when course selection is going to be done, what's an idea of when that might be available?
We anticipate getting the course selection taken care of by the middle of February, usually the third week or so of February. We'll be done with the incoming 9th grade group from the junior high, and then we'll also make contact with the private schools that have historically been part of our 9th grade cohort. And hopefully at that time we'll get a better idea what that 9th grade incoming class size, how that impacts our equation.
So are we thinking the end of February to have a more specific idea what the impact is?
Yeah. That again, the original plan is, and again, timelines can always, we did build in a little cushion if we need to stretch it out a little bit, but to finalize the areas that we think we can have a savings by the February 22nd board meeting. And then that gives the administration an opportunity to take a look at some of those personnel and notify personnel prior to our second meeting in March. Oh, yes, just sure.
I usually do this at the end of the meeting, but I do want to mention, as long as we're talking about that, there are going to be 2 open forums on budget reduction planning. One is February 3rd and one is February 15th. And they will be held at the Westmont Junior High School Commons because we can't do it at the high school because of this upcoming play. But so there will be 2 opportunities for open forum, and we'll be getting the word out to our community about that. So, like I said, I just wanted to
because you're
bring
mentioning it, do you happen to know the times as well?
Yeah, we're 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
So February 3rd, February 15th, 7 o'clock, Westmont Junior High. And Kevin will be presenting.
Yes. And then the last thing in your superintendent report is the Alliance Legislative Report, the most recent one. That's good to see.
The next item is board reports. Are there any information at this time? Special ed, Mr. Price, do you have anything?
Actually, the SESA meeting is tomorrow, so I don't have anything new.
Okay. Finance.
Okay, you had a recap of the financial presentation from PMA in your board packet, and I won't go back over the details because that was presented this evening, but really, and I think as I alluded to during the presentation, most of the time your 5-year plan, at least the first year or 2, is kind of that worst case scenario, and in this instance, again, we're looking at it a little bit differently and more in terms of best case. Here's some of the things. Here's what we need to do, even with salary freezes for all of our employees. This is what our deficit position looks like. Sometimes it's difficult if you build in salary increases to really get the impact of what the salary is doing to your deficit and what everything else is doing. And this gives you a true opportunity to look at where you're at with no salary increases, and gives you, I think gives the board and the community a good understanding of what that deficit looks like, and then you can make, adjustments from there. And again, we can look at CPI. If CPI really comes in at 1.5% again, that's another $200,000 that's going to need to be cut. If our, EAV, a new growth is lower, that's another $35,000 for each $1 million, of EAV. Again, some of these pieces of information we'll have as soon as we get our levy, then we'll know what our current new value is, and we can make some further assumptions based on that number, whether we need to adjust that lower or not. And again, this is a dynamic model, so we can, as new pieces of economic information come to us, then we can make adjustments to this and plug that in and see where things go. As we start looking at some of these budget reductions, we can plug some things in and say, okay, this is where we're going to be. So it's really, this is kind of the base for the board to make some decisions about really, what you want to do and how you want to attack the deficit and to what degree. So, does anybody have any other questions? All right, then in terms of the financial reports, the lunch report is attached, and again, we continue to have expenditures that exceed our revenues. One of the things that, our payments by, children's paid lunches is down. We're noticing participation is down at the junior high. Again, could be result, some of our French fries and our a la carte things. Enrollments are lower there as well, so some different things going into play there. One of the things we did under the revenue section, we added a new line item, unexpended lunch funds, and you'll see that to date we have just under $17,000 of monies that we have collected for lunch tickets, so kids have that money on their lunch card, but they haven't yet purchased lunches. So that hasn't translated into our sales yet. We don't really have an easy way of going back and tracking what that number was last year, but this way, at least from this point forward, we can kind of track that trend and see how much money we've collected but hasn't really hit our revenue because it's not expended. So that should provide some better clarity in the future. Then activity accounts are attached, the summary for those. And then our fund balance as of the end of December is $14.8 million, and we have $8.6 million in our ed fund. Investments are attached, and you will see I did do several investments this month. Our collateralization with Clarendon Hills Bank, that the amount of money that they would collateralize has decreased, so that has necessitated the move to do some CD investing, and the rates you can see are significantly lower than even 6 months ago. So anyway, and that's, part and parcel of why some of our investment income in the 5-year projection is going down, our projections, because we're not going to be able to invest as much money at the higher rates that we've been getting from Clarendon Hills in the future. And hopefully short-term rates will start to pick up. And then in terms of the financial summary, we have received 51.69% of the 2009 levy. Tax collections right now amount to 98.38% of the 2009 levy. And I do think I did receive the January distribution, and our collection rate's going to be a little bit lower than it was last year.
So what was it last year?
It was 99.7, and we're looking at 99.3%.
And we budgeted 99.5?
Yeah.
Okay. And so being off by 0.2 on 20 million is $40,000?
Yeah, roughly.
Okay.
All right. And then in the ed fund, again, the revenues are trending higher for both the current year and the prior 3-year average. Again, the state funds are, the payment timing is skewing some of that. We have now received all of the FY10 money that was owed to us. However, there's just under $350,000 of what FY11 payments that we haven't received. And hopefully those will be coming soon. One of the other things in the Alliance legislative report, and I believe in your state superintendent report, the state recalculated GSA based on districts that have multiple counties in their jurisdiction. And so for us, that amounts to a reduction in our general state aid of $37, because again, we don't get that much general state aid. So that was the impact of that. In our operations and maintenance and life safety funds, we're finally starting to see the effect of the early receipt of rental and interest revenue kind of subsiding, so we're seeing a leveling out there. Right now, our revenues are about 3% higher than the prior 3-year average and just under 5% higher than last year. And again, part of this is attributable to budgeting $218,000 less for interest transfers and less interest income for the year. In the transportation fund, revenues are 11% higher than the 3-year average and just under 14% higher than the prior year. Again, having to do with some timing of receipts of revenue. And also, the revenue budget this year is $97,000 lower than last year, so that's about 11.3% difference. So that accounts for a good part of that. And we're still waiting on $188,000 of FY11 transportation payments. So we have not received any of our FY11 funding for transportation yet. Expenditures in the Ed Fund and Tort Fund, they're running as projected, and we should come in as projected there. Right now, we're also looking at reviewing supply and purchase services expenditures with everyone in the district, so we make sure we get monitor those as we go forward. In the Operations and Maintenance Fund and Prevention Safety, expenditures in these funds are 16% below the prior 3-year average and just under 9% below the prior year. Again, this has to do with the creation of the Capital Projects Fund and how we were flowing through capital purchases in the past. They were coming out of the O&M fund, now they're not. The other thing is I really took a good hard look at our expenditures for purchase services, supplies, and capital outlay. And to date, we have $130,000 for capital outlay expenditures, which is 5.7% of budget expenditures that hasn't been spent yet. Also, our supply and purchase services spendings are a little bit low at this point in time. Some of that is due to, again, timing of receipt of invoices, and then some of it are utilities are running a little bit better than projected. So, but again, we'll see what happens after we get through these winter months. In the Transportation Fund, expenditures are 5.38% below the 3-year average and 7% below the prior year. And 4% of this is really attributable to, again, timing of receiving our invoices. As of the end of December, we still hadn't gotten our November invoice, so we're about a month behind in payments, and that's just due to receiving things from the bus company, and those are catching up now in the month of January. Does anybody have any other questions? All right, and then the last thing is you have an additional audit document, again, dated, as I stated in the memo, dated November 4th, but it wasn't mailed to the district till December 15th, so it wasn't in time for the last board meeting. And one of the comments was that the auditors noted that the actual expenditures exceeded the enacted district budget. And this is a result of the on-behalf payments, which on the district budget, it's not money that actually flows through our revenues and our expenditures. It's a budget line, it's a line item on the ISB budget. You budget your revenues equal your expenditures for that line item. It has to do with pension payments, and it's kind of the pass-through. So our revenues were over by that much, our revenues were over by that much, our expenditures were also over by that much. It's the same situation occurred last year. There was not a comment on it. And the other piece, the district did not have the opportunity. Typically, they've amended the budget, and they did not amend the budget last year. So we will take that into consideration for next year.
Yeah, we ran out of time.
Yep. So.
And just to say out loud what that's about, the state of Illinois, in ISB, has a requirement that at the end of the year, effectively, that our budget has to match our actuals, right? Or our actuals have to match our budget.
Right. Well, you can, what you try to do is, not exceed, your expenditures don't exceed what your budgeted expenditures are. If they exceed it,
but the practice,
probably a good idea to amend your budget.
But the practice across most districts is effectively to amend their budgets.
Well, here's the other thing, and it depends on your auditors. If your expenditures exceed budget, but you have revenues that cover that, most don't have an issue with that. So in this case, because again, this was that kind of, it wasn't real money coming in and real money going out, you're really okay, but they just brought it to the attention.
Yep.
We have this expense report then. Any questions?
Yeah.
Then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the bills for the month of January 2011 as presented in attachment number F5 in the amount of $1,474,731.81.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Lubeck,
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton,
Yes.
Mr. Charleston,
Yes.
Ms. Casey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other public comments?
Question.
Can we just, the status of the scoreboard bid process, can we have can we just hear an update about that and what's going on with that?
Sure. We received bids from 3 vendors on the scoreboard, and I did due diligence on the low bidder, and all the reference checks came out very positive. It did a comparison of the bid specs from the product that we spec'd versus the product that was the low bid. Those two were not the same. And right now, shared all that information with the boosters, with John Schwarney. And right now, we're waiting for the boosters to come back to us. I believe they have to have a meeting to discuss where they want to go, because the low bidder was not the vendor that they had originally had been considering in the specs. So we're waiting to see where they want to go forward, how they want to proceed with the process.
So that equipment, that the boards and the wireless controller that they wanted, will that work with the other boards that we already have here out on the baseball field and softball field?
Probably not, but when you're doing 2 scoreboards, you're going to do, if you do a football and a basketball, you're going to have 2 wireless controllers, so that if you were at a football game and your wireless went bad, you still have the backup from the basketball.
Okay.
So that's not an issue.
Okay. And then I'm just going to inquire about, like, when I went back and looked at the Miller playground equipment, that was very specific model numbers that were written in that bid for that specific pieces of equipment. And I'm just curious as to why we didn't do that same specific bid writing for the scoreboards.
I did we spec'd out, we did very specific scoreboards, and said that we could do, they should be, if they were coming from another company, that they should be, have the similar characteristics to those particular models for fair play. So that was in the bid spec.
But it was stated as or equivalent, right? I mean, right?
Mhm.
So it was different than how the Miller playground equipment, because that was never.
Well, I wasn't
Okay.
here then, so I can't really speak to why that was done or how that was done.
Okay. So I'm just curious as to why. If there was specific equipment that was wanted, why it wasn't written for that specific equipment.
It was written for that, but you also have to allow the alternative for other, because otherwise you're creating a monopoly that there no one else can bid.
So are you saying that only that one specific company can provide the specific equipment that was being requested? Is that what you're saying?
On the playground stuff, and actually it was
No.
the,
No.
On the scoreboards?
Well, it comes from fair play. I mean, most times another vendor, I mean, if anybody wants, we had several contractors interested in the project. In fact, I received numerous phone calls from people looking at this project. But in order to buy the fair play equipment, they have to get it from a fair play dealer. So they have to go out and would have to buy that equipment from a fair play rep.
Okay, but the one bid that came in from the vendor who the boosters were looking at, they had to do the same thing,
Well, they
correct?
are the rep.
They are fair play.
They are the rep.
I see.
So other contractors were calling them to get pricing on the equipment.
I see. And then with the playground equipment, was it the same type of situation?
that, my recollection on that, and it was in both cases, Manning and Miller, the equipment came from a single source, like the stuff, this physical stuff, but it could be sourced through multiple contractors. So the bids that were coming from the contractors were pricing, obviously, the equipment, but then it was pricing as well, all their labor and everything else. So the equipment was, I think it was new toys or new.
I think it was new toys, and I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think the equipment came, it was like they were much the source
They're
for
the provider of
the
that.
plastic stuff
Of that
and the
kind of stuff, but.
bridges and the
Multiple,
pieces.
they didn't have, per se, exclusive relationships with contractors and deliverers of that equipment.
And then one other concern, you did mention that the controllers would work for, in this case, football and basketball. However, there are instances where the gym, those scoreboards are being used for volleyball when football is going on. So I'm just saying that there could be a case where we wouldn't have the controller because those two events are taking place at the same time. So I guess I have to go back and say it is a little concerning that not everything works together if we have that opportunity, that can interact with each other. Does that make sense?
It's definitely something to think about, but again, we went with, bids, did the specs and did the bid, and Fair Play was not the low bidder. And so if another controller is an issue, I'm sure we can work that out.
Well, and I think there was just one, the difference was like $600 or something, I mean.
7 something.
Yeah,
I don't
I
have
mean, it
those
was-
figures with me because that wasn't
It's
on the
really
agenda to discuss this evening.
Very, very close. They were very close, those two bids. And I don't know, what the rules are, but I know sometimes at the village, we don't necessarily always go with the lowest bidder if there is a valid reason for not. So I don't know if that's, something that the school district ever does, or, if the controllers is an issue for that minor difference in the two bids, that may be something to take into consideration. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there.
Do we want,
I don't know if, within the bid document, if that was a requirement that the equipment integrate with what we currently have, so.
It was or wasn't?
It was not.
It's not.
If you
I think
need it.
though, I think if the controller is an issue, my guess is you can work with the vendor on that piece.
Well, thank you. I know it wasn't on the agenda, but it was mentioned at the last meeting that we would discuss it in this meeting. And so I felt it's important that we let the community know what's going on.
Well, and actually, I thought that I did ask for it to be put on this agenda.
But we don't have.
we don't have the information that we can bring forth. So that's why it's not here.
I can't present anything for anyone to act upon because I don't have direction.
So I think we're going to have to wait to get the direction from what the boosters, is that what I'm hearing? So we as a board can't do anything yet. So it will be.
No, but just an update would be nice. Like Kathy said, it's always nice to just, give an update.
Yeah, oh, sure.
Even if we can't make a decision. So.
And I'm sure it'll, if it comes, it'll be on a future board meeting agenda, if it's something that the board can discuss at that time. Is that right? Okay, anything else?
I'll just add real quick, because I forgot to kind of bring it up at the board reports part. I went to the Evening of the Arts, and I know a number of board members were there, and it was just really nice to see all the artwork and hear the bands and the choral groups. It was really a fabulous evening, and I enjoyed it very much, and I certainly look forward next year. I also, my daughter participated with a group of about 15 junior high students who went to the Southwest Community Band for a day-long workshop, and that was just a great extra opportunity that Mrs. Nemec arranged, and I think it gave the kids a nice chance to play with other students from other schools, and just to have a nice shared experience, and they had a performance at the end of the day, which was really pretty good. So it's a nice event for the junior high band, and I thank Mrs. Nemec for her work on that.
Yeah, the Fine Arts Festival was wonderful. I think that goes to one of the strengths of our district, that at any given point in time, we could have all of our choral groups up on the stage at one time. It was very nicely done. Okay, anything else? Then the last thing just is the future meetings. Again, February 3rd is an open forum, 7 o'clock at the junior high. February 8th is our next school board meeting here at 7 o'clock. And then February 15th, open forum again. Budget reduction planning, 7 o'clock at Westmont Junior High again. And then the chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining and personnel issues.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mr. Charleston?
Yes.
Ms. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubeck?
Yes.
And there will not be a vote after closed session.